All right, we are on the last objective for chapter 1, and we are going to finish up with financial statements. So there are 4 financial statements, and they're going to give them to you here, but I'm going to list them out. Remember, this is very, very important. They have to be done in order. Have to be done in order. So you have the income statement, statement of owner's equity, the balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. Okay, so they have to be done in this order. We will not actually do a statement of cash flows until we get to Principles of Accounting 2. Right now, what I want you to know is that it's the 4th financial statement. Okay, but I'm not going to ask you to do one on a test. Not right now, anyway. Okay, we got a couple of months before we get to statement of cash flows. All right, so there's a couple, they give us a little bit here, but I kind of want to just dive on into them. But look, they wrote them all out there for me, and they're actually in order. That's awesome. Sometimes they write them out, but they don't put them in order. So let's look at the income statement first. Okay. The income statement is only going to have revenues and expenses on it. Okay. So I'm going to write my accounting equation out again with my revenues and subtract my expenses. Okay, remember I told you these two sort of fall underneath that umbrella of owner's equity. So these are the things that we do to make money. Okay, we had service revenue. Now they are pulling these numbers, quick review, they're pulling these numbers from over here where we made those entries. So there's 8,500 in revenue, and then we had 2 expenses. So I don't want you to just wonder, where did those numbers come from? Okay, that's where they came from. We ended up with net income of 5,300 because we had more revenues than we had expenses. If we'd had more expenses than revenues, we would have had a net loss. Okay, so we're income statement only has revenues and expenses in it. Okay, the next statement is the statement of owner's equity. So really, if you think about statement of owner's equity, if you kind of go back up here, we'll do it right here. Statement of owner's equity sort of bridges the gap between income statement and the balance sheet. Okay, so you can see our equation here. We're going to do the statement of owner's equity, which will include this net income that we got from the income statement, but now we're going to look at the statement of owner's equity. Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about the dates that are on these and titles and stuff a little bit later. I don't want us to get bogged up in too much detail right now. Okay. So owner's equity started, this is a beginning to end start of owner's equity. Sheena Bright had 0 in it because this was a brand new business. Anytime it's a brand new business, the statement of owner's equity beginning balance, that's what this is right here, beginning balance will always be 0. Okay. So she put $30,000 in, and then from the income statement, that 5,300 came from right there. So now you see why you can't do the statement of owner's equity until you do this income statement, because that number pulls down into the statement of owner's equity. It is very, very important that those are done in order. Okay. Then the owner took out $5,000. That was that last transaction. She took out $5,000. And so her ending capital is set. So you can see November 1st was the beginning. November 30th was the ending balance of 30,300. Okay. So I'm going to write out my accounting equation one more time. With my revenues minus the expenses. Okay. So we had this for the income statement. Then we have the owner's equity. Okay. And then I told you that bridged the gap to the balance sheet. The balance sheet is only assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. That is the only thing that is in the balance sheet. Okay. All right. So we're going to come down here. We're getting these numbers also from what we did earlier. I'm going to go all the way back up here. I try not to do that too much because I know it's frustrating while I'm scrolling up and down. So notice right here, we had an asset cash, 9,000, an asset accounts receivable, 1,000, 500 for office supplies, and 20,000 for land. Total assets was 30,500. Okay. So we're going to come down here to that balance sheet and we see all of those assets. Okay. Then we only had $200 in the accounts payable. Okay. So a lot of students will try to go up here and grab that number. This will be the last time I scroll up there. They'll want to grab this number right here for capital, but that's not correct because we did that statement of owner's equity prior to the balance sheet, and we're going to pull that number. We're going to pull this 30,000 all the way down there. Okay. That's the only number you're not going to go back up into that sort of trial balance that we had balances of all those accounts. You're going to pull that number from the statement that we just prepared. Okay. And we put 30,300 in there with the payable of 200, and that makes our balance sheet balance. Yay. We know that we're mostly correct here. And obviously this is a textbook problem, so we know it's correct. If you do get to the balance sheet, you can balance. You may have made a wrong journal entry, but at least you know you balanced, okay? So the other financial statement is statement of cash flows. Really, like I said, I'm not going to make you do one. This is probably one of the harder financial statements, and that's why we're not going to do it until we get to principles 2. Okay. It does have a heading. We'll kind of talk about headings a little bit later. But one thing I do want to point out, when you're doing a statement of cash flows, you have a built-in check figure on cash. So your net change in cash should equal the difference between your cash, the end of last period and the end of this period. So the ending cash was 0 because this was a brand new business. It ended with 9,000. It has to be a change of $9,000. Okay. Don't get bogged down in statement of cash flows. And if you'll remember, I'm not going to do this learning objective 1.6 because we've got a whole chapter on ratios that we're going to do, and we're going to do a project over those, and it's going to make those make a lot more sense than me just testing you on those, making you memorize a ratio. Okay, but this is all of chapter 1. I will see y'all in chapter 2.